Welcome to Fandom Power.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fandom Power. It's Wes here, and once again I'm joined in studio with Andy.
Hello.
And all the way out in Halifax, welcome back, Hank.
On your left.
It feels like it's been a couple of weeks since we've had a little chitty chat, but I guess that's actually true because of other recordings and other issues in life and all that stuff.
Yeah, wow, it's been a crazy few weeks.
It has been.
Halifax is a ghost town. It's a ghost town. I think it's because the downtown area that I live in, it's very like there's one road in, one road out. You know what I mean?
They do, yeah,
so
yeah.
It's a very small place to have 600 cases pop up in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so people are, suitably cautious. Most people are wearing masks 100% of the time. Like obviously not at home or in your bubble or while you're driving, although there are a few of those people.
Well, we see that here too, yeah.
But certainly when you can't social distance in
that's
public
right,
places, that's like sort of the mandate now.
Yeah.
They didn't do what they did last time, which was incite panic by telling everybody that there was going to be a grocery shortage. Instead, they kept the grocery stores open and running at limited capacity. So
you haven't experienced a rash of panic buying like we did here in Ontario the last 2 times?
This time it wasn't so bad. We certainly didn't panic,
No.
And we did last time. I wouldn't say panic, but we definitely bought a lot of stuff in anticipation of having to lock the doors and not move for 2 weeks. Because
Right.
you were hearing like in California, they had the stay-at-home order, like the shelter-in-place orders in the United States at one point.
That's
and we thought, oh, that happens.
similar to what we have going on here.
Right. And that's the word. But what we're trying to do here, I guess, is limit. They're encouraging people to go outside, which I thought was kind of bizarre.
It being outside where the risk is minimal, I guess. As long as you
as long as the groups are tight.
Yeah.
You can't gather in groups of 5 or more. 5 is the max.
We've seen, we've seen all of those precautions to some degree or another over the last year. And then there's
part of the problem is they're easily skirted.
They are. Oh, for sure they are.
And we had, I don't know if you saw it, if the news reached you out there, but we had 22 Dell students through a party the Friday night before the Saturday morning that the new rules went into effect.
Oh, wow.
And they got busted. Somebody called on them. They got busted. And they're all over social media was the kids posting with the $1,000 fine tickets.
We had something similar here in our area, whereas the local college, they did something similar. It was talked about like it was a student residence. Of course, the people who own the building were very quick to point out to say that no, we are not affiliated with the college. We just happen to to be 100% student residence population.
Yeah, no, that happens. Like that. We sort of build towards that because it's the market, right? They immediately doubled the fine.
Oh yeah.
Here in Halifax, the $2,000 immediately.
You'd figure they would have learned from this one because this one resulted in a death.
Yeah, you would think, but
it's just wild.
Which kind of brings us back around to where we are now. And I mean, I don't know for you guys, but for me, the wealth of entertainment properties that are going to streaming have kept me pretty sane over the last few months, and I'm quite happy for that. And I'm definitely happy looking at the release schedule between now and the end of the summer. There's lots of new stuff for us to consume and talk about.
It's perfect.
But today we want to talk about a little show that came out just a few weeks ago, 6-7 weeks ago now, because yesterday was the 2nd episode of Marvel's Assembled, the making of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, is our reactions and feelings towards the series. So I had a chance to watch it twice through. I watched it again this week. I watched it contiguously, which I have to say right off the bat, I actually preferred to watch it 6 hours straight. It reminded me of watching the Snyder Cut, only different. But I found a lot of the jokes actually made more sense when you watched it, all the way through, because I'd actually forgotten that there was a joke in the first episode about Steve Rogers being on the moon. And so by the time we watch it the first time through, when that joke is made for a second time, at the end, We're like,
Mhm.
what? Steve Rogers is on the moon? Totally forgetting that it was a joke in the first episode.
Moon stuff.
Right.
Yeah, moon stuff.
Moon stuff.
Moon stuff, yeah. And certainly with the Eternals movie coming out, that bodes well.
Doesn't it though? All right, everybody. What do we think? Sort of initial thoughts, overview, kind of the series as a whole.
I was blown away. I won't say they almost lost me during the first 2 episodes, but certainly the 3rd episode is where I was just like, wow, okay, this is becoming like they're going for something larger, something grander. And I guess I was expecting that from the last couple of Disney Plus shows. So maybe my expectations of the first 2 episodes were a little high. But when we hit the story in the 3rd episode, you know, like I was 100% in. And like I said during the fan division thing, this is so much more my hamburger and pizza versus like a sushi. And I got fat. I watched this thing. I've probably seen it 12 times.
Really?
Like I watched the crap. Oh yeah. Like and because it was so short, I was able to watch like I tried to do with The Mandalorian, but it was hard.
Yeah.
Was to watch episode 1 and then watch episode
1 and 2, and then 1, 2, 3.
And then so by the time I was watching episode 6 that Friday, it was I was watching it at 2 a.m. because I watched the other 5 episodes
Right in
first.
front of that, yeah.
And so it was kind of like rereading the chapters of the book just to get to the next chapter. But it's so worth it because I never got tired of it, and I saw so many little things, and one of them is the acting chops on Sebastian Stan blew me away. I wasn't expecting like he's had his face, you know, 3/4 covered for 2.5 movies.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they said in the Assembled really hit with me where they were like he's never had time to like decompress or deal with it. He's been fighting for 90 years.
Yeah.
And just the little like the eye twitches and the like, man, he's a great actor. Man, he's a great actor.
Yeah, you know, as far as so I have some thoughts about that character, about the Bucky Barnes character, and about Sebastian Stan himself. First off, I'm going to talk about Bucky himself. Bucky is a character, great for him to have, like I say, that room to breathe, and for him to be able to act and to reflect and to process, like you say, 90 years of fighting and, you know, coming to grips with what it meant for him to be the Winter Soldier. I feel like his story was a little underserved. I felt like almost everything in the show served to move Sam towards becoming Captain America. I know they tried really, really hard to let Bucky have his moment, but I feel like it was underserved, and we could have, you know, I would have liked to have spent a little more time with him. You know, maybe some more. I know we didn't have to have a lot of time with him and the psychiatrist, but I like that dynamic that he's in treatment and you know, he's getting sort of, I don't want to say head shrunk, but you know, he's getting analyzed and not dealing with it very well. But you're right, Sebastian Stan, great actor. I'm quite happy with his portrayal of the character. I can't wait to see where this character is going in the future.
No, certainly with the 2 White Wolf references.
So now, and that has me really, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but that has me really salivating for the next Black Panther film to find out what they're going to do with him, because you can't not use him in that film.
No.
You know, will he adopt the White Wolf costume, or will he be de facto the new Black Panther until, you know, someone like Shuri comes along and takes over? So I'm pretty excited to see where that goes.
I'm really excited about that. I think that parts of Bucky's storyline had to be truncated for COVID. Certainly, they weren't as open with what got cut as they were with Fan Division, but they have been pretty open that things did get moved around.
Yeah.
That the season got shortened, that certain elements had to be pushed forward into new things. And I really agree. And I was sort of worried by the end of the 6th episode that we weren't going to get anything from Bucky except for there's a way he was walking in the 6th episode, and just after the montage with the boat,
after the training montage.
Right, yeah, there was like a lightness to him, that you'd never seen with the character before, and then that's when I kind of went, okay, they jammed the catharsis in at the end, but at least we got it,
I was going to say the assembled episode kind of talked about his first real moment of being a hero. And I have to say, before we even saw that, as we were watching it, I actually I caught on to that when he opened up the armored car and let everybody out. And the one guy, the end guy, stopped to say thank you. And he made a point to say, "You're welcome." You know, that's his real first moment. I am not the Winter Soldier anymore. I'm, you know, Bucky Barnes, the White Wolf, or whatever I'm going to be. No, agreed. Like they said, it's the first time he uses his abilities not to hurt somebody. Yeah. You know, and I mean, it's got to be hard to be him having cleansed that of his, you know, I mean, he's still dealing with the emotional ramifications, but the programming has been removed, and now he's dealing with the aftermath of that. But then to have to play himself when, you know, as part of Zemo's plot, that's like that's mind blowing actually for that character. That's a, you know, and for him to pull it off, it's such a nuanced thing. The looks that he gives in that scene are like, there's a scene where they're on the plane and Bucky grabs him by the throat. I'm not sure linearly where it occurs, but Bucky grabs him by the throat because he references the book and the name that's not scratched off. Right. And when Bucky lets him go, because he doesn't even flinch. Like, I don't even know how the actor did that, because if you came at my throat, you'd have to train me for 10 years not to flinch a little bit. He doesn't flinch. And then when Bucky lets him go, he does this like little half breath out, like, and lets you know, he breaks it for the camera. It lets you know he was terrified in that moment, but he's such a badass villain that he didn't even show it one iota. Yeah, I know. There's a couple moments where, you know, I actually said to Kim as we were watching it, I said, I think, you know, Zemo was actually scared there. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. There's 3 times I could, if we were watching it together, I could pause it and go, there's the moment where he like. Yeah. There's one where he's got a pistol in his face, and I'm pretty sure he's like, you know, pants go brown. Right. But then he does, just before the trigger's pulled. Yeah. He nods at him as if to say, okay. Yeah. It's ahead. Like, I've made my peace with this. And if this is the way it has to end, then that's the way it's going to be. He's a badass villain. Yeah. He's an interesting character. Excited for the Dark Avengers if they're going that direction. Yeah. Now we've got Val, and we've got US Agent, and Zemo is the leader of that group in the comics, and I'm kind of excited to see that guy play that character a little more. Yeah.
Is it going to be Dark Avengers, or is it going to be Thunderbolts?
Or sorry, you're right, Thunderbolts. Yeah, they might do all 3, and Dark Avengers
just roll it into one.
Yeah, right. Well, he's going to the raft, and we know that Ross is at the raft, and it's starting to make a lot of sense. What did we think about sticking with Sebastian Stan and Bucky Barnes? I kind of had to do a 1-2, like a double take, like a what? When, you know, Bucky's talking to Sam and reveals, when Steve told me his plan about passing the shield, that Bucky knew all along, but we as the viewers didn't find out until that episode of the show. What do we think about that? It changes the scene at the end of Endgame, because I honestly thought it was strange that Steve called Sam over. But Bucky.
He didn't. Bucky says, over there. Go.
Yeah, so it's almost like Bucky's pushing him.
Yeah,
that's very true too. But I still thought it was weird that the character that approached wasn't Bucky, because that would be the more emotional connection for that scene. That's what I thought too. Right. And so they weren't going for an emotional connection, although we got one. Yep. What I was talking about with Lauren the other night is what they didn't do with Bucky was set him up like in the comics. He was Cap's sidekick. That's right. Yeah. For the entire war. And then they were both lost at the same time. And so we never got ever to see Bucky be Bucky. No, we only ever got to see Bucky recover from being the Winter Soldier. I guess you got a dynamic. You got that montage in the first Avenger, which doesn't really give you anything really towards character development. More about Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I felt strongly, that if anything's a disservice to the character, is that we never got to see him be a hero before his fall. Yeah. Which like Star Wars style would make that fall, and therefore that redemption so much better. Yeah. I would watch a Captain America Bucky movie set back in World War II. Oh yeah, easily. Watch the shit out of it. I will say I did appreciate this. I don't know if you guys saw this. A couple weeks ago, I saw a split screen of Sebastian Stan in the Bucky Barnes costume that he wore with the Howling Commandos, and it was a side by side with the costume that he's currently wearing in the series. And wow, they really went back to that World War II costume, and it shares some design elements. And if you didn't know it, like you got to see them side by side to get what I'm saying. But
Right.
I would encourage anybody who's listening to go out and, if you're into that kind of thing, like the evolution of the costume, go and have a look at those two costumes and see how similar they really are. Is a nice touch that they were able to pull from those design elements and bring them forward.
It was really good because his whole color scheme in this is that navy blue, and they've moved it from the black. And they're actually there's a shift there where they move U.S. Agent to black and Bucky to blue.
Yeah.
And colors are always super important in comic books. In the early comics, it's one of the easiest ways that they just defined heroes and villains with just by color palettes. I mean, the story was definitely, their actions and their words, but you could not read. You could pick up a comic before the time of reading and go,
that's a hero.
Green Goblin is definitely a bad guy.
That's right. Yeah,
Superman is definitely a good guy.
But I mean, you look at the printing process back in those days and the paper that they were printing on. And so that, I mean, there was a lot that came down to,
colors.
Yeah, exactly. So heroes tended to be your bright blue, red, yellows, oranges, and villains, always came in the purple and green.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's funny.
Great.
So I'm going to stay with Bucky for a little bit here. And I didn't think we were going to get to this right away, but I'm going to get this out of the way right now. One of the things that took me out of this series the most, and both times as I watched it, was the fact that the Flag Smashers, and it's not really established on the nose that all of them, what their backgrounds are. But I mean, it's Carly Morgenthau has a moment where she's speaking to one of the other Flag Smashers, and she's talking about her dreams of being a teacher. So that tells me right off the bat, civilian. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I can't believe that even though the Flag Smashers were acting as the private security force for the power broker, I can't believe that all of them were highly trained, paramilitary types. And so when we see the Flag Smashers going up against, one of the world's greatest assassins, i.e. Bucky Barnes, and even John Walker, who is this special forces trained soldier, super soldier serum or not, I have a hard time believing that they can all go toe to toe with these two characters.
No, certainly Carly is a bit better fighter than she should be, like hand-to-hand combatant.
You think?
Perhaps, let's, I like the show too much to worry about it too much. Certainly she's Carl Morgenthau, the crazy big giant white and black Flag Smasher from the comics. But the idea to turn the villain into a child is brilliant because we want to protect her. I don't know. Maybe she was a Taekwondo expert.
Maybe.
Child prodigy or something, because she certainly can. She can scrap. And we saw that also when she played Enfys Nest.
Yeah.
So the actress is definitely key to that style of performance.
I agree.
No, I could see it. Perhaps Terminator style, like Resistance style. Some of those other guys are paramilitary, and some of them maybe brought her up to speed with basics. I know basics.
I would think that
shit against the Winter Soldier, but
that's it too. It's like, I get it. Flag Smashers on civilians or even private security forces or like local police, but this isn't. These characters are on a whole other level, and so when you have ostensibly a civilian going toe to toe with the Winter Soldier, I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense to me.
No, a little bit it doesn't. The serum has been refined so that it doesn't change your physiology, just the actual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you could look like you and I, Wes.
That's right. It could be a big fat guy like me.
Yeah. And with giant beards that lift tanks. So
with my beard.
I kind of like that idea because, let's be honest, it's really hard to identify as it I don't look like Captain America. And you start to understand how women have felt for eternity. But then you see something like that, like the average dude. I think this is why Die Hard was so resonant with film, because John McClane was just the average dude.
Right. Yeah.
So I like that idea. And I found Carly Morgenthau to be one of the first villains. I mean, Zemo certainly. I got a personal thing with Zemo where I'm Lauren calls me a Zemophile, but she's one of the first villains where I was like, I'm 100% on board with her cause.
Yeah, I have to
And
agree with you
when
there. Like
Sam,
the
when Sam is giving that speech,
Yep.
he's saying the words I'm thinking in that moment. He's like, I just don't agree with the way you're doing it. And I'm just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, get out of my head. Get out of
I
my
believe in your cause. I can't fight your fight the way you do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I'm this close to being a flag smasher. Like
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
the
it's
idyllic.
a thin line. It's a
Yeah.
thin line, like one world, one people. Who can argue with that?
Right. Yeah.
And so they make that distinction where the powers that be call them terrorists, and they're corrected time and again.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
And I think that's super important for the world.
Yeah.
Especially
It's
now.
super important that we rebrand that kind of idea, because we don't, the struggles that people have are,
Well, like Sam said,
she thinks they're resistance, and he thinks they're freedom fighters, and the government thinks they're terrorists, and somewhere is the truth.
Right. But as Sam said, like, at what point are you going to take the actions of somebody and start asking questions like the why question?
Why do you think that is?
And I mean, that is it in a nutshell. It's all about the why. Why?
It's perfect.
It is perfect.
Like I texted last night, the last 5 minutes, I'm a blubbering mess, and it's been like 4 times. Because we go from that speech that like your heart is soaring, but it's like there's a tear because he's right, and then there's a little bit of a moment because you know that they know he's right.
Because he's a black man, in New York City, and even as accepted as he is as Captain America, he knows that all eyes are on him and that not everybody agrees with him.
I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes.
And his first few statements, they dismiss. The senator turns his back and walks away, and he brings them back. Like it's such a good speech, which is why the little moment where he's like, well, you're where Isaiah is like, you're no Malcolm or
yeah.
But that speech is serious. Go from that moment with that speech to Bucky cleansing his, what's left on his list, to the Isaiah memorial, and I'm a blubbering mess. Those 3 things, like, wrapped up in such nice, like, for a 6-hour thing, we got a nice kind of bow at the end. Like,
yeah, I agree with you. At the very end, that speech, I think it's the speech itself completely, perfectly, totally answers the question why Sam Wilson is Captain America. And just like Steve Rogers, if you were to boil his speech down to just one concept, it is the same thing as Steve Rogers, that Captain America is about justice and not patriotism. He is the complete antithesis of John Walker, John Walker's Captain America was all about patriotism and, rah-rah and the flag.
That's right.
So,
and here's what I didn't realize about myself and John Walker, the character. In that moment when that truck, and I think it's the second last episode.
Sure.
Maybe it's the last episode. That truck was going off the bridge, and
over.
Falcon can't handle it.
Yeah.
That's the last.
I yelled out loud the first time watching it, "Do the right thing, John."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" Like, I hate that guy. But I needed him to be Captain America in that moment, right? And he did.
Did you catch the little part in Assembled where it must have been a previous take or an alternate take on that scene where Bucky is holding on to the door handle and he's screaming, "Help me, John"?
No.
Yeah. So there is an alternate take in Assembled. Yeah. It's interesting.
Right.
Might have played totally differently if they'd used that one on the final print.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and maybe that's what they realized, was because Bucky grabbing the door and yelling what I yelled ostensibly would have removed my need to do that. So maybe you know what I mean? Maybe more people had my reaction than I know. But I really did. I was like, "Do the right thing, John." And when he did, I was like, "Yeah, right on. Okay." Because that's another part of this whole thing that we can get into, is that John Walker, that speech he gives
At the beginning?
No, at the end,
right?
When they're dismissing him.
Oh, right. When he's being punished.
And he's like, you did this to me. You made me. I did everything you asked.
That is, every good soldier's conundrum.
And so I was like, he's not a bad guy. He's a product of his environment.
That's right.
He was a child before they did this to him, and now he's been given a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, pretty
right?
much. Yeah.
And with even the speech that he gives at the beginning, when he's in that locker room with his wife.
Yeah.
And he's so scared. and he's so nervous, and
Talking
he's just
about
like,
just
I
wanting
just
to do the
wanted
job.
this feels like the first time I've ever done anything good with my life. And
Yeah.
it's genuine. He really wants to do something.
Knowing
he's
that,
clear-
even knowing that by that time he was already a decorated soldier, 3 times over.
Right. And then you look at his view of those decorations in that moment with Lamar when they're having dinner, and he's like, I just three badges that commemorate the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
And how they have this perspective where, Lamar is bringing him up, and imagine what we could have done with that formula. And it's such noble reasons that he becomes the villain. It's crazy. It's crazy good, actually.
Well, I mean, certainly the little rough him up with Io and the Dora Milaje, and I mean his reaction to that and how stunned he is. They weren't even super soldiers. He was so...
I got the impression of a bully on a playground who just got his ass kicked for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. I don't want to say he got his comeuppance, but really he got his comeuppance, and I mean that just messed with his psyche on a level that, if you're on the precipice, on the ledge, that getting your butt handed to you was the thing that pushed you over.
Yeah, and I applaud the decisions that were made with the John Walker's Periphery, because the show is primarily about racism and how we're going to move forward in a time like this. And the decisions, because you could have easily had John Walker, people interpret that as this black versus white thing, and I'm glad that they did things like he clearly went to a black high school, and he clearly has a black wife, and so you know what I mean. So I'm really glad that that's the case, because it could have been steered in a whole different direction, and it was perfect.
If anything, I think one of the strongest points of the show is how it addresses racism in America. I think it's actually it is so well done.
It's super well done, and I mean
that scene outside of Isaiah's house sums it all up.
Yeah.
I mean, on social media, watching people of color resonate with it too, is super good, because that's what you don't want. I don't want to interpret it as being positive if they don't interpret it as being positive.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And to see that I'm kind of in the same lane makes me feel really good about the way I viewed the show. That
whole notion of, and we've had this conversation before, both on the show and off the show, is that you and I, and well, the three of us really, as middle-aged white men, will never ever know. We can never know. So no. You do kind of want to base your, opinion sort of around people who do know. And like you say, Hank, if it's resonating with them, then maybe they're getting it right.
There's the thing that I can't remember Sam's real name. Oh my goodness.
Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie. There's a thing he says in Assembled where he said, where Steve wasn't the white Captain America, and I'm not the black Captain America.
Just Captain America.
We're Captain America. And that's the end game. That's the real end game with racism. That's where you want to go. Look at that man in the brown coat over there. Not look at that black guy in the brown coat.
Yeah, of course.
And that's man, this story hopefully brings that hopefully that really opens people's eyes. I hope there's some actual senator sitting there watching that speech going, wow.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
Yeah, I mean, in a idyllic world, I hope so too. I don't know how, maybe that's kind of lofty.
It's probably lofty.
Yeah. It's a start.
It is absolutely a start. One thing I really
got a garbage can lid, not a shield.
One thing I really enjoyed that I didn't pick up on until watching Assembled, but I thought was written so well, and now because of Assembled, I understand why it plays so well, is how much of Sam's family life is based on his actual personal life coming up in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's kind of great.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Easter eggs, I don't even know if it's an Easter egg, it's just craftily written, was the boys calling him Uncle Sam in every scene.
Uncle Sam.
And I'm like, like, foreshadowing or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It's the most diametrically opposed thing to that poster that you've ever seen, but he's Uncle Sam, right? Fantastic.
It was an interesting, sort of character. I mean, the whole thing is a character study, right? I mean, if anything, even the other entertainment outlets are calling it a character study in sort of particularly Sam Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
But to see Sam and his sister go to the bank And, you know, that whole, you don't have any earnings for 5 years. He's like, well, I was gone for 5 years. And, you know, that the weight of, you know, these billions of people showing back up and, you know, just reminding you that, oh yeah, the world is a very different place now, but at the same time, it's not. And that he's still disadvantaged by all of the systems that are in place to keep people down.
I think Carly even references in a moment that after the initial snap, everything changed. It was a better world. People were going to countries they would have been killed to be in before.
Yeah, even Sam had mentioned
arms.
that. Yeah, like people were just happy to have other people around who were willing to put in the work.
And then suddenly half the world is back in refugees, and the idea, and it didn't occur to me. I mean, maybe it was subtle, but when the senator literally says, you know, coming back after 5 years and there's a totally other family in your house, you think those people should be homeless?
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, we're like, yeah, like
you're really going deep.
It's an impossible task.
And
you're seriously referencing the Palestine and Israeli situation there.
Yeah.
And the idea of sovereignty and who lives where and what belongs to who. And in Tibet, the Chinese have been occupying it since 1950. It's not even considered an autonomous place anymore.
No.
For years, the youth and the political, you know, ad hoc government of Tibet, including the Dalai Lama, wanted just to be allowed to go back home and have been, you know, and now even the Dalai Lama says those people that have been born there, there's 50-year-old people there that are Chinese now.
Yeah.
We can't go back and take their homes. And so it really brings into focus, like, what is sovereignty? What do you own? Where do you belong in the world? And whose responsibility is it to make sure you're safe? And if we're going to give up certain rights and freedoms to the government, then Sam is right. It's their responsibility to take care of us.
Yeah, the whole notion of social constructs, and I mean any social construct, it really kind of, you know, if you didn't question any of this stuff before, I think maybe after you watched it a couple of times, maybe you would question maybe some of those social constructs.
I hope so. I mean, I think that's what it was designed to do, and I really hope so.
So let's move on a little bit here. I know there's lots of stuff to talk about, and we don't really have a format today, but let's talk a little bit about Sharon Carter and her arc throughout the whole thing. What do you think of her?
It's the one thing I didn't like.
I'm with you on that. To the point where I actually made a point last night when I finished watching Assembled to go back and watch Civil War, and I actually went back to the scene in The Winter Soldier to watch the scene between Steve and Peggy in her hospital bed to see their conversation, and then I went and watched Civil War to watch the funeral.
Yeah,
and I get what they did, and I know the writers talking during Assembled were really excited, and I understand their rationale for writing her that way. But man, you know, as somebody who's not as versed in the comic books as somebody, you know, some of the other fans out there, my experience with Sharon Carter is exactly what I saw in the MCU. And so for somebody who was so motivated by her aunt, who is a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't understand her turn. And
it doesn't make
sense to me. And even like just putting her story,
to me, it's a turn for a turn's sake.
Yeah, I agree with you. Putting her story together in the chronology of her story. Yes, she went from being a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to when S.H.I.E.L.D. was dissolved at the end of The Winter Soldier, she took up a post in the CIA. But you can't tell me that a word or two from Nick Fury himself would have smoothed over everything that was wrong in her life.
Well, this is it. And they even reference, like, if the Winter Soldier can get a pardon,
well, here you go.
You've never done anything wrong. But I think that you might get something coming up that's a little different than what they're showing us, and maybe an additional twist. So the first thing that I noticed was that she never actually admits to being the power broker in that.
No, that's true.
She just rolls with it. And I certainly think that's ridiculous, but that's okay.
What, that she never admitted it?
Well, no, that she's even that character.
Okay.
Just based on the comics and who the character is.
Sure. Yeah.
Different sets of comics and stuff. But
yeah.
And then there's another thing coming up, like, that happens in the comics that maybe they're going to sort of steer this towards, and that's she had relationship with Captain America in the comics, the Steve Rogers character, but
Yeah,
she's
there was a romantic interest there.
right.
Okay.
And which is weird because of the romantic interest with the aunt,
Yeah.
who is actually her sister in the comics.
Yeah.
They changed that too because they got to skew the timeline, right?
Okay.
Steve's only in the ice for 20 years in the comics.
Right. 1940s versus.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she flirts with Sam, and like when he's out of his pimp clothes after Mad Report, he's shirtless in the black pants. She's like, that's a better look. And she does a hair flick when she's talking to him in that scene.
Oh, I never picked up on that subtlety.
We're going to get Captain America and Sharon, that iteration of a romance.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, she's telling the absolute truth when she says it was only natural to take my skill set and flip them this way.
Yeah.
To just stay alive. Taking a skill set and flipping it to survive is a very Nick Fury thing to do.
Yep.
But then it's all falls apart with the friggin' phone call at the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's calling her or who is she calling?
She's on the phone calling somebody, presumably one of an underling.
Right. And then you're getting her going, oh, well, so there's no more super soldier formula, but I can get Tony Stark level weapons.
Yeah.
You know?
Unlimited access to government tech.
Right. And in the comics, the second iteration of the Power Broker was a tech broker instrumental in the Armor Wars.
Okay.
Remember the Iron Man storyline where Tony went around trying to
all the villains that
had pieces of his tech or adopted his tech.
Yeah. And
so maybe we're heading in that direction. I don't know who's gonna wear the armor. I don't know if there's a new version of Iron Man in the comics. If his daughter takes the mantle up or anything like that.
Iron Man 2020 is Arno Stark, which is a long lost brother, I think.
Okay.
And then there's also Riri Williams, who is Ironheart.
Right. Yes.
Who is
that's right.
Basically, super smart kid that figures it out and builds her own suit.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know she's getting introduced shortly in some form, like maybe a cartoon or something coming to Disney Plus. She's already been introduced in the latest Spider-Man series, Maximum Venom.
Okay.
She's in there.
So
Nice.
sticking with Sharon for a minute, that scene in the, I guess it's the dockyard where all the shipping containers are when they're running around. The knowledge that the low-level people in her employ don't know her identity because she's, outright murdering them and they have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they are in Madripoor.
And again, maybe there's some like that phone call at the end. Maybe that's the power broker she's talking to. Maybe she's playing both sides.
Did you feel there was a disconnect? And maybe this is just me pulling at straws here, but like there's a couple times throughout the series where the Flag Smashers, Carly or one of her underlings, get a text message and it's from the power broker. And I think the first one basically says, "You stole from me. I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
Do you think there's a disconnect between those messages and the characterization of Sharon when we see her on screen?
Well, certainly Sharon says, "Why don't you come back and work for me?" Which is different than
"Then I'm going to kill you."
And in what capacity were they working for? Let's say the power broker.
Yeah.
Because you had said the phrase earlier, personal security.
Yeah.
But it begs the question of what level of training or combat did they have?
Well, this is it, right?
High school girl even have that before the super soldier serum. Ostensibly, they were her security team,
right? Because
they stole
from her. Yeah.
So is it that she gave them all a dose each, and then they stole the other 12 doses, or is it?
But who are they stealing it from? The scientist that she had locked away working on it for her,
right?
You know what I mean? Like so weird.
That's very.
Does anybody remember that guy's name? That doctor, the scientist? Andy, you're pretty good at this. Do you have a name for me?
And it's interesting because Zemo might have more to do with this than we let on because he is such a great villain. He's the one that kills that doctor in that scene before the doctor can actually spill the entire beans, right?
And that goes back to his motivations about not wanting, super soldiers should not be allowed to exist.
I would 100% accept Zemo as the power broker in the background.
Me too. Me too.
That would be dope.
While Andy's looking for that, I'm just going to carry on with the conversation about him. I'm curious to know. I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the elements that we've seen in the show, by circumstance or by design, we're gonna get a little bit more on that in the upcoming Black Widow film. And I'm curious to know, because that doctor said he was part of the Winter Soldier program. Now,
Right.
are we going to see that guy working for the Soviets in the Black Widow film in some sort of flashback, do you think?
Maybe.
I mean, it's entirely possible. He recognizes Bucky in that scene.
Oh, yeah. Because they even say, I'm sure you know who this guy is.
Yeah, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
There's a few people that have seen Bucky before. In the Mad Rapport bar scene, the one bald guy with the beard is like,
That's the Winter
oh,
Soldier.
you cut your hair.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so like he like knows him.
There's a scene when I went back and I watched Civil War, and they do the flashback scene with the Winter Soldier program when they were creating them, and there were 6, and
That's
one of
right.
them is a big bearded dude, and he's just on screen for just a split second. And I paused it and I turned to Kim. I said, "Is that going to be David Harbour in the Black Widow movie?" Because at the end of Civil War, when Zemo goes to the facility, there's only 5 tanks. The 5 tanks have a body. The 6th tank is empty or gone.
Nice.
So I'm
That's
like,
real
is
good.
that
That's very astute.
is that going to be Red Guardian?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I'm super that just that scene made me super excited.
At
for
the
that
same
movie.
time, timeline speaking, the Black Widow movie is supposed to take place after Civil War, between Civil War and Infinity War. Yeah. So I mean, David Harbour
Yeah.
would have had to have aged and put on a lot of weight, in that time.
Well, that's
Although it is a flashback scene, so maybe it's not so far off.
Yeah, if they're crafty, they can pull that off. I know that
Yeah.
it was supposed to be out already,
Yeah.
and that Val's appearance was going to be before this.
According to, who was it, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she was not
Mhm.
aware that she didn't know that. She just knew that. Somebody said that. No, who didn't say that? Somebody said that they didn't know that was happening, that she was actually supposed to appear somewhere else, that it's still kind of up in the air, rumored.
Oh, yeah, well, perhaps, yeah. Maybe the end credit scene from the. I honestly, while we're on that subject, I jumped around there a bit, but I thought she might have been channeling a little too much Agatha Harkness.
Oh, yeah. The Contessa, you mean?
In her, she was.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were like, just be quirky. You know how like Agatha did it?
She did.
I don't know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I do.
But she's, it's almost, I don't want to say derivative, but.
Well, I mean, it's
let's see. It was only about 30 seconds of screen time. So
Yeah. So clearly, let's stick with her for a second.
Just before you jump, your doctor is Dr. Nagel.
Dr. Nagel.
Dr.
Yeah,
Played
so
by Ollie Haskibi.
I'm going to be keeping my eye open for him in the Black Widow film. I'm curious to know if he's going to connect to that.
Do we have a date for that yet?
July. I think it's July. Might even be July 4th, to be honest. I'm not sure. But it is July.
Nice.
Sticking with the Contessa here for a second, and let's go back
Mhm.
to the couple scenes that she's in. At the end, John's wife is sitting there in the same room where not only was he sentenced, but also where Sharon was pardoned. So he's in the antechamber in the back getting into his new U.S. agent costume. So
begs the question, eh?
what level of government is the Contessa working for?
Who the hell is she?
Yeah, because
And
that's
also another.
Is that not a bit of a departure from her characterization in the comics as
believe
as
so.
Madame Hydra?
Well, she starts off as the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that defects, right?
Right.
She starts out because they retcon this, but she's a member of a totally different enemy spy organization.
Right.
And then meets Nick Fury and becomes S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, she infiltrates S.H.I.E.L.D. and they retcon this, but she infiltrates S.H.I.E.L.D., becomes a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent during her training, and this sort of happens before the retcon.
Right.
She beats Nick Fury in hand-to-hand combat during training, and that's where they fall in love. And then they have this whole relationship for nearly the entire run of Nick Fury and Helen Commando's comic, where at the early Captain America comics, she becomes an agent of Hydra. And
right.
so it's a long, slow burn in the comics, actually.
So if Nick Fury is our Archie Bunker, then she's our Maud.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. And
interesting.
They, if they ever share a scene together, there's certain the potential is there that they've had a romantic past.
Well, now that you say that, I'm kind of like, I hope we see that.
And they even call her the something Nick Fury, like the anti Nick Fury in Assembled. There's some way they turn a phrase there where they make her they say that she's the sort of the antithesis of Nick Fury.
Anybody know what the deal is with her business card being blank?
I think that's very typical of
a secret
Black
organization,
Ops, operating. She's nobody, but she's sitting there. What am I trying to think of? I'm like a guy in a lumberjack jacket and jeans, but he's got, you know, an AK-47 in a bag, and he's sitting at a cafe in Kabul waiting for an order, you know, but he's not a soldier. You wouldn't ever pick him out of a crowd.
No.
That kind of thing. Like Black Ops is what I got out of it.
So was it a joke?
I think it was a dismissal. I think it was actually a little indicative of her character. It wasn't lost on me that it was black on one side
and white on the other. Yeah.
It also wasn't lost on me that the typical white flare in her hair.
It was purple. Yeah.
Which is kind of like Victoria Hand.
Yeah.
From the Dark Avengers.
Oh, there you go.
And there's also the tendency to call the character Val in this, which is also another completely different character and love interest of Steve Rogers in the comics.
Right.
Val Cooper.
Interesting.
It's like mashing characters there. Like Carly Morgenthau is probably the biggest departure from the comics by completely, you know, gender swapping the character, de-aging them, making them, you know, they're completely different, but identical in
motivation.
You know, motivation characterization.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well,
so remember I was talking about maybe we were tied too deeply to the comics and how diverging from the comics would affect really heavy fans, and I think that Carly Morgenthau is the first sort of dart into that map.
Sure.
Where we super diverge, and it's fantastic. I'm great with it.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with it too. And I say that from as much as I love comic books, I've been apart from them for long enough now where I rely on the expertise that you bring to the show, Hank, and you, Andy. So for me, you know, as the general viewer, I'm quite happy with the caliber of acting and the characterizations that we're getting. Aside from the little nitpicks that I have, I mean, they're all, you know, to some degree, they're all great, you know, generally speaking.
Yeah, and I was super impressed when I watched Assembled that the amount of CG work that's in this.
Oh my God, I couldn't
not realize was like I'm watching Falcon do barrel rolls and shit, and I'm going, no, I know that's CG, but it's crisp.
Yeah,
and then to watch them like just put his head on the costume in a scene where he's standing there, and I'm like, oh right, so there's a ton of CG work here.
To go back
the thing where his mask was popping out.
Well, that's it. Like every scene with him, every scene with the Captain America costume is CG'd to keep the costume flat on his neck.
Yeah, get rid of the Velcro straps on the head. That's fantastic that we've come that far
to digitally
I didn't notice that crap.
To digitally insert the lenses on his goggles.
Yeah,
because there isn't any. It's just a strap with some open eye holes.
Like that's easier to do now than to actually have red goggles.
They say there's a video essay out there on YouTube, and I think the title is "Why CGI Sucks, but It Doesn't," and it basically boils down to you don't have enough money, or you don't have enough time, or a combination of those two things. And this show is proving that no, CGI does not suck, and like all of those little things that you don't even know, the costume elements alone, you know, proving that CGI has a place and will always have a place in the future of filmmaking. But even bigger scenes like the set pieces in Berlin, where it's not Berlin, it's a road in Atlanta, and we just digitally inserted every tree and, you know, made it look like Germany.
It's
like,
crazy.
Did you have any idea? Like, I
no
didn't.
idea. Like
I was completely immersed.
They totally talk about like John Walker ducks down and he's in Berlin, and then he looks up and we're in Czechoslovakia, or that's fantastic that they, you know, that we can do that and have it be seamless for the viewer. We've had to invent new ways of making film during COVID, and seeing them go through what we went through as real people in the world, like the way our lives were kind of shook up at the beginning, and to watch them all be confused and panicked and not know what was going on, and then recover from their lives and move forward and finish the project. That's a great story in itself.
I read a thing the other day that said that the estimated budget per episode on this show was $25 million per.
Great horny toads!
So that's more
the thing that it used to be. Then certainly the budgets are there. Like, so if we, what was that, 150 million over 6 hours?
Yeah.
So a 6-hour movie for that much, that's not bad.
That's
a good price.
That's nothing.
Yeah, not when you're talking
you talk about the billions that it takes, or the 250 or 300.
Yeah, 250 million to
Solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, which I still hell of a movie. But what and this may even revolutionize the way we see films made, because it's possible to make them cheaper and have them look
Yeah.
so good. Now, I don't know about watching the Winter Soldier on a 60-foot screen, but I can't see that I'm watching on a 65-inch screen, and it's
Yep.
pretty damn good.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I think that you might see just a revolution in filmmaking, like certainly what Favreau and the team have been doing on Mandalorian with the volume.
Yep.
Is going to revolutionize.
Oh, that is absolutely. You know that
location shooting, right?
every studio in existence is going to be developing their own version of that. There's no way.
Right. I was hoping we'd see some of that in the
me too.
episode, actually.
I'm sure the guys at the Marvel group are like looking at the Star Wars group, going, "Can we borrow that?"
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, but we've talked about it before, again, on the show and off the show, about COVID has changed the landscape for movie going and certainly for television. But there is a line, a blurred line between, how these properties are made and that they're becoming more and more superfluous.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean the show does play like a 6-hour movie, and like I said, we were texting back and forth prior to doing the show today. And we all kind of were like, hey, we're all rewatching this kind of at the same time. And I had said, I wish there was a way to watch this without the episode breaks in between. I mean, I can just hit the button and it's a few seconds, but still, just cutting out the end credits and the opening credits, I'm like, this is really good this way.
Yeah, when I finally watched it linearly, I was super impressed with how well it flowed into one another. And it even seemed like they made the whole package and then edited it to fit into its, there's a one of the writers talks about how they broke the story horizontally into episodes, and then they broke it vertically into a big movie. And it you can really see that. You can really see how they had this 6-hour story arc, and then they moved it around to fit into its slots.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to sit in a movie theater for an hour and a half and have a joke land from the first 10 minutes of the movie in the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's a harder thing to make that happen over 6 hours. Like you said, you didn't really catch it, the joke. Right? Until you watched it like that.
That's right.
And so,
because there were 6 weeks in between.
That's right.
Or 5 weeks in between.
You've got to be like an uber genius to remember every line.
And I don't have my powers of recall are not that great.
No, not anymore. No, me neither. So, things like that are, I'll say it to the day I die. I'll die on this hill. The show Lost changed the way TV would be made forever.
Yeah.
And even movies, because I think it let the people who made the shows understand that people weren't stupid.
Right.
That they would sit through episodic TV, and that the episodic could be smart and intelligent and quirky, and that we would stay invested for years. And TV and movies haven't been the same since.
No, they really haven't. This episode of Fandom Power is brought to you in part by CollectorsPlatoon.ca. CollectorsPlatoon.ca, organizers of the annual Toronto Collectors Platoon Toy Show. Check out CollectorsPlatoon.ca, the Canadian home of Ian's Display Accessories, specializing in action figure stands for figures of all scales. Visit CollectorsPlatoon.ca today.
You're listening to Fandom Power.
Can we talk a little bit about the that opening sequence in episode 1, the helicopter chase? And I just want to focus specifically on the inclusion of Georges Batroc. Did anybody surprised at him coming back?
No, he's a great villain, and thematically, it's perfect for him to be the first villain that Cap fights, the new Cap.
I think of the scene in The Winter Soldier when Steve bombs out of that plane, no parachute, comes up out of the water and does that like running sweep of the entire ship, takes out everybody between him and the bow, and then has that square off with Batroc.
Epic.
And then to see like, oh, we're going to go round 2, but it's a different Captain America, right? Or rather, at this point, it's still Falcon.
Fantastic. And I mean, even that opening scene where he, just falls backwards out of the plane is so, did he just jump? Was he wearing a parachute? No, he wasn't. It was very similar to that scene.
Yeah, very, very. So Batroc's played by retired mixed martial artist Georges St. Pierre.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him in some other stuff. If you haven't seen it, there's one of the Van Damme's Kickboxer franchise.
Sure.
He appears in one of the Kickboxer films, the same one that oh my god, the guy who plays Drax, the WWF
Batista.
guy. Yeah, so Dave Batista is Tong Po in that movie, and George St. Pierre. Yeah, George St. Pierre plays one of the fighters in that movie. That guy, surprisingly, he can act a whole lot better than you would expect. He plays sort of a drunken, your drunk uncle in that movie.
Okay.
So to see him play the villain and again, talk about room to breathe, this is the most we've seen from Batroc in his MCU appearances.
Kickboxer Vengeance.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Nice.
What do we think of him in the, overall?
It's a good fit for him.
You think?
I really enjoyed it. It's nice to pull. I was hoping for more of that style, like big villains in WandaVision. So it's nice to have Zemo and Batroc. It's nice it deepens the lore. Like if I'm reading that comic, Batroc pops up 50 times in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like these villains reoccur, and that's such a natural thing. Like, oh, I gotta fight Doc Ock again. And so as a comic fan, it's organic to have villains pop up out of nowhere that you're completely familiar with. And
with him, it's nice because he is a villain, right? Like you don't have that same complexity that you do with Zemo or Morgenthau.
That's exactly.
It's just like,
and
villain.
Also, he's for the budget constraints.
Yeah,
he's an affordable villain.
Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah,
you can't afford a Josh Brolin cameo, but you could put George St. Pierre in there for 5 or 10 minutes and break even, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
the acting and skill set he brings, right?
Right. Yeah. These are all like astute decisions financially, as well as, and it perfectly moves the story forward. He's the ideal kind of character that would take that job. And it actually broadens, because there's this thing in the Marvel universe that's like sort of underwritten, and there's this wealth of supervillains, and if you're one of the puppet masters or even a bigger level, like Doctor Doom can pick up the phone
and get these guys.
I need Scorpion and the Puppet Master, and I need 3 Green Goblins and a Hobgoblin, and so there's this idea that there's
a pecking order within the villain hierarchy.
Super villain for hire tier, where what do we got today? Batroc the Leaper's not doing anything. Perfect. Let's grab him. Paste Pot Pete's available. No, maybe we better wait. That kind of action. And even more so, I'm way off topic now, but even more so with random thugs.
Sure.
Like that, there's this, like, you could go on the dark web and be like, I need 3 thugs for a job at 9:30.
I need some muscle.
According to Barrington and Salter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
At some point, we do need the bar with no name.
Exactly. And the idea, do you guys remember the Tick cartoon?
I do, yeah.
The Tick, he's great. He's stronger than anybody.
They go to the supervillain
Arthur.
bar. All the sidekicks have to wait outside. That's great.
I like George St. Pierre. I like the character. I actually thought he was a bit of a joke in The Winter Soldier, because he was just such a non-threat to Steve. But in this, he's a credible threat in this one.
Certainly. Well, and Sam doesn't have that extra punch, if you will.
No.
So the fight's a little more even, and then uneven because Batroc's such a better physical combatant.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy the way that they make, I call it the Falcon kata, which is like his wingsuit accelerating his normal movements. So if that guy punched you in the jaw, it would hurt. But if he punched you in the jaw with a retro rocket on his elbow, it's going to knock your block off. And that's perfect. Those little flares, his ability to, flip and kick, but suit assisted, makes it really real. That little fight in the helicopter on the plane feels really real.
All of those elements of Sam using his suit, and that really, like you say, if you are a non-superpowered superhero, you're going to use every gimmick and every every little thing at your disposal to even the playing field.
And it shows the evolution of the character. Like,
big time.
He doesn't do that shit in those other movies. He's learning. The suit is evolving. His connection.
Well, no, I mean his first outing with the wingsuit is all about guns.
And then since we're on the scene, I got to talk about the first thing, and maybe the biggest thing that ripped me out of the whole show was they knock Sam down. He stands up to get back into the fight, and every single person, including the knocked out soldier, has a wingsuit on. Oh no, not the knocked. He's still wearing his camos, but
Right.
everybody's got a wingsuit.
Yeah,
suddenly.
yeah,
In
yeah.
4 seconds, they all have wingsuits.
They're all
on,
wearing
and I
them.
was like,
Wait,
guys,
how'd that happen?
please
like
don't
the
do
Spider-Man
this again
web
for 6
wings.
episodes.
Yeah. But that is, I mean, so that talk about set pieces and action pieces in the show, and arguably there's only a few major set pieces. The canyon chase being one of them, the helicopter scene that we're talking about.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Imagine being the SFX guy and reading the script and going, "What the hell are we going to do
How am I going
that?
to do this?
How the hell are we going to do that?" And then seeing Assemble and going, "We just had guys in wingsuits jump out planes with cameras on,
Yeah.
and we used some of that footage in the like. Yeah, that's fantastic."
I love
GoPro.
that Batroc rolling onto his back with the twin pistols was a practical thing.
Yeah,
That it was an actual guy doing that. I'm like, well, that's really impressive. Because when I'm watching it for the first time, I'm like, that's got to be CG'd. But no, it's a practical
Yeah,
thing.
that one thing wasn't CG.
And
Seamless marriage.
yeah, the one thing they touched on in Assembled that I really appreciated about that sequence was, whereas Sam up till now has been a side character, has been a secondary guy, and has never really had a chance to have the spotlight and to shine, and that if they were going to do, a Falcon dogfight per se, it's got to be the best Falcon dogfight that you can have, and I think they really pulled it off.
Nailed
Oh,
it.
that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I kind of
That was exactly what it was. A
you know,
dogfight. Beautiful.
the words "Beggar's Canyon" came to mind. At that one point when they're ripping through the
Hell yeah.
through the canyon, I had to imagine, is there who's a Star Wars fan here?
And so there's other things in this scene that I found disturbing, although they corrected as we moved forward. And Lauren actually helped me come to terms with a bit of it. But I thought the Falcon kills a bunch of people in that scene.
Yeah, he does. When the helicopters are getting blown up.
Like kills them. No, I mean, like, he crashes one of the wingsuit guys into a cliff.
Oh, that's true.
He uses he flies through the helicopter, turns back around, fires like a Spider-Man style tether,
Yep.
whips the guy out into open air over the canyon, and then
Yep.
cuts the tether.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't like how much these guys are just killing people.
Yeah, it's different dynamic for sure.
Because he's still at
And-
that point operating under like U.S. jurisdiction, right? Like he's soldier.
Well, yeah, like
I get it. But for growing up with comics, and you too, Andy, and the old comics, Wes, there was only one character that took lives,
Yes.
Frank Castle.
You mean the Punisher?
Yeah.
and that was the Punisher.
Yeah. In terms of
Right?
heroes,
And
yeah.
If anybody ever took lives, it was a crazy big deal.
Yeah.
It's such a defining character thing to push Spider-Man to that limit,
Yeah.
and then have him push back and never ever go over the edge. And it became a thing for Daredevil. Daredevil actually killed somebody once, and it shattered him as a character. Cap has come close a couple of times, and it's the way that you go inside yourself and you pull back from that moment that has been a defining sort of thing of the Marvel hero.
Right.
And so it did take exactly what you said, Andy. It did take Lauren saying, well, they were on a military op against military trained combatants, and you do see them. Sam doesn't kill the flag smashers; those are just kids.
Yep.
So he's using the appropriate force. Although I still don't know if Captain America and the Falcon, like, what would Steve do if he was there?
I don't know.
Have we seen Steve kill a guy in the MCU?
Well, during the first Avenger, I mean, he's often Nazis.
That's true. Yeah, because he's still full on gun Captain America at that point, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But again, there you go. So the context is in the theater of war, under wartime conditions.
Right.
So
right.
appropriate use of force.
Against like the appropriate combatants.
Yeah. Where, the Nazis are bad guys and the Americans are the good guys. Like there's no.
So then the question, I guess, is why not kill Batroc?
But I think,
or
I think he
too
would. I
important
mean,
to
if
the
he
story?
hadn't have dove out the side of the helicopter with his wingsuit,
That's right.
very well would have happened.
Very well would have.
On that sequence, that whole intro, and I paid attention to it the second time around because I'm like, wait a minute, this whole intro, the hijacking of the plane, they never really establish what was on the plane? What were they hijacking and taking the hostage? What was that all about? There's really, other than to give Sam Wilson this awesome like dogfight scene, it doesn't exist for any other purpose other than to introduce, yep, here he is. It's the Falcon.
Well, who was
For
it
me,
that
it's the
got
James Bond.
took?
Yeah. For me, it's the James Bond intro. Every
Yeah,
James
very
Bond movie
much,
starts
yeah.
with the end of another mission. Every
Yeah.
single one.
Well, this
And
is
so that's what it was for me. It's the James Bond intro.
it's totally possible that this is just another seed that they planted. Like whoever Sam saved
Yeah.
could pop up later being of importance.
Oh, I was going to say, did you know something I don't? Because I'm sure they mentioned his name, but I don't remember there being any major, plot dropping, I mean, other than to introduce Torres. I mean, Torres obviously is, there is a plot thread that can be expanded on later.
Well, he becomes the Falcon in the comics.
Right.
He
So
becomes Cap's new partner. So
it'd be interesting to see. I mean, and after, Walker tears the wings off and he just puts everything in a bag, and Torres is like, how'd these get broken? He never really answers it, but he's like, what do you want me to do with this? He's like, keep it. So, I mean, conceivably, Torres has in his possession the old titanium wingsuit that he may, who knows, down the road become the next.
Well, and he's tinkering with it at the table.
Yeah.
As
he's watching the
first
speech.
episode after, right? Exactly. Yeah. So no, I think that's sort of the destiny of that character for sure. I felt a little worried that character was getting too into the flag smash. Like he had the app. He certainly was there at the event, and he pulled the gun and got beat up, had his ocular cavity shattered. But I thought that they might deepen that storyline by having that character connect deeper with the flag smashers. But then realizing who he actually was and that he's the new Falcon, I was like, okay, I'm glad they sort of didn't do that.
I like that he was kind of running point, for Sam,
Yeah, it's great.
It was interesting to see him do that. But again, Sam talks about being, in the bank scene, he talks about having U.S. government contracts. So you are an independent contractor working for the United States military. Where does Torres get the breadth and the flexibility to kind of go and do his own thing? You know
I
what
don't
I
know,
mean?
but I thought that the wingsuit was government tech.
Well, that's what they tell him too about tracking them, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't track them; we tracked you."
You hacked my tech? Sorry, it's not exactly hacking. It's government property.
Yeah, and so at what point does the government just wash their hands of Sam having the suit and say, "No, go be an Avenger, be a Falcon, be a I
just presume that every iteration.
Because I assume you don't have your weapon with you. Like you didn't get to keep it, and you don't get to use it at your own discretion, right? Or if it breaks, you don't get to give it to me so that I can repair it and use it at my own discretion. It's a little strange dynamic there.
Well,
they sort of reference it by saying there's a legal gray area with the shield.
Yeah, I mean,
I've really belong to.
I had that conversation with my wife as we were watching it. I'm like, if anybody has a right to it, it's the Wakandans. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you see, what's her name? One of the Dora Milaje pick it up. Like she's gonna take it, and then they're like, leave it.
Yeah. I would also argue that the Stark Enterprises would have some ownership over it.
Again, where did they get the vibranium from?
No, I know, but like, do I own my gold ring, or does the miner who took the gold out of the earth own it after I've already bought and paid for it?
The big question is, was the gold that your ring made of, was it stolen?
No, that's
the big question, right?
It does, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, and inevitably, it probably all is.
Oh my God, where was going to? Oh yeah, so talking about Sam's wings for a second here, I want to go back to that because I just assumed that every iteration of Sam's wingsuit after the first were just re-engineered by Stark. I assumed that Tony just made him a new, because every evolution of the costume it got more refined, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Red Wing
more
thing,
than just
and all,
a paint job.
Yeah, because they are not completely different, but they are evolved and they're more streamlined and they're more accessories and more features.
Yeah. In Civil War, or Winter Soldier, so it's like a backpack.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's more of like a bodysuit.
It's worn like a harness, like a parachute.
Oh, and can we talk about how when he deflects the fucking helicopter on the bridge?
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's pretty
vibranium,
cool. Yeah, exactly. But you knew that as soon as he said to Io, I'd like to call in one last favor. You're like, he's getting new vibranium wings.
See it in action, man. When he folds the wings over himself and the
shield on top.
Bounces off him. Oh, it's so good.
Cap shield like the mushroom cap on top.
So good.
Yeah, so the whole tracking him, I'm like, oh, so we are to believe that it's been the same wings right from the get-go. Like, again, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, yeah, that kind of takes me out of it too.
A little. I mean, perhaps the main part of the wings, or like, maybe Tony tinkered with the chassis or
Sure.
or something. But he also he talks about being a part of a program
Yeah.
where they're, and if we get into a broader MCU, the Vultures, tech is not like that, but the Vulturians certainly had Falcon style outfits in the Web of Spider-Man comics when there were a bunch of different Vultures. So maybe we could get some cool stuff with that type of tech too. Certainly, we're going to see a Young Avengers movie now that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, we're like we've had 3 or 4 characters now that are.
There's already been some set photos of the new Hawkeye, the younger Hawkeye.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Bradley's grandson is Patriot. Is it?
Yeah. Isaiah Bradley. I can't think of the actor's name. But for those of you who are thinking you've heard him before, you have.
Carl Lumley.
Yeah, so Carl Lumley was the voice of the Martian Manhunter on the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited series.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Loved his characterization. Loved, I can't imagine what it was like for them to dig up, like to pull that emotion forward when he's talking about, being imprisoned and being experimented on, and like you hear the pain in his voice, and he was just such an incredible performance.
There's a telling line at the beginning of that, just before he gets into that, which is like, Sam says, I don't know what you're talking about. And he says, if you're black, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't lie to yourself. And that's something we can't understand.
No.
But watching those people have an open conversation about it, kind of conversations that we would never be privy to, is really nice. And to see that there's a way of thinking about the past, and that there's a different way, because Isaiah is Sam's conscience. That's what he serves. His purpose in the story. And there's that moment when he says, like, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be Captain America, where you're like, I don't understand, but that's gospel enough for me coming from that character. So what does Sam do with it now?
I felt that was just one more push, like Sam is, he is a reflection of Steve Rogers on some level. And that's where I say that, Captain America is about justice and not about patriotism. And so
that's right. When
they talk about, carrying the stars and stripes and, fighting for a country that won't fight for you, that kind of thing. I feel, I look at Isaiah Bradley as, philosophically being the antithesis of Sam Wilson.
Right. But Sam needs to process that. He needs to.
He does. For sure he does.
Like, he needs to. Well, and we as the viewer need that spoken.
Yeah.
We need to hear it. We need to hear that's the trepidation that they face every day. That on the surface, that they're part of the greater whole, but that they don't feel that way.
Right.
That they've been marginalized and that their trust is gone. And so it's wonderful to have Sam find a way to fight against that and be willing to keep fighting against that, because we all know what it's like to keep fighting and be too tired to carry on.
Yeah.
And when it's every single moment of every single day of your entire life, I can't even begin to imagine how exhausted you would be after a lifetime of that.
No, I can't either. It's too bad we don't get to spend more time with him, because I think, and I haven't read the comic arc, but I would love to see what Captain America, of the Korean War, what he's about and what he's doing.
Hell yeah. And the statue might have even been a younger.
Oh, it totally was a younger
generation.
Man.
And so, yeah, there's no reason we couldn't get that show.
So let's talk about the museum for a second, because that is one of the shining moments of the story, is when they take Isaiah and his grandson over to the Smithsonian. And you see that now the Captain America exhibit has been expanded to include his section. Why is he not depicted as Captain America? Why is he depicted as Isaiah Bradley, soldier?
They never implicitly say that he wore the outfit.
Oh, so I guess I'm just making that connection to...
From the comics.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, super soldier. That makes sense.
And so he lays it out when he says, like, I broke out of the facility to go and rescue my... So... Tops he had on hospital greens. Maybe he went and grabbed his olive drabs in his boots.
Well, I
but
mean,
right? Like,
he got punished for doing the exact same thing that Steve Rogers did with the Howling Commandos.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Although Steve didn't have to
can't be
break out
lost
of
on
anywhere.
anybody.
He just decided I'm going to go and do it, even though I'm part of the USO tour.
That's right. Yeah. A trumpet player just went and rescued.
The museum I thought was fantastic. In it, there's so much. We spent so much time on our Fandalorian series digesting all of the language stuff. The camera moves so fast, and the density is so dense that you can't read everything on the walls. And I want to.
No.
I want to read it all.
I want to go to the museum.
Kim found.
I seriously would love to go to the museum.
Kim saw one that the headline was "The Final Mission," and she's like, "Oh, I want to know what that says." And I'm like, "God damn, you're so right! Like, I want to read it all." Like, conceivably, these, I guess that's plexi. It looks like it's etched. The production has gone out and made these things. They're practical set pieces. They have to exist somewhere.
Yeah.
Hopefully there'll be some high-res imagery of what those things say, because I would love to read them,
I really loved, he even references the Tuskegee experiments with the, which were horrible things that they did to black men with syphilis experiments and things like that. And they take that and they turn it on its ear a little bit, and they turn it from a horrible disease to a supersurgical formula that may or may not kill you.
Right.
And that's a great little turn. I love little turns in comics or in movies where we take a completely real thing and we take it right to the end, and then we twist it so that it means the same thing, but it gives us our little sort of genesis for a hero or a villain. And I really enjoy that. And that's a great moment. It brings it really into the world, because if anybody goes out and researches that, prepare to be completely shocked and horrified by what human beings can do to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we think about Zemo talking about the Sokovia Memorial?
I don't know about specifically, but in broad strokes, this show is super good at keeping everybody gray, except Sam.
Yeah.
He's a victim. Everybody's a victim, but hardly anybody is playing the victim here.
He's a victim to some degree, but I mean, I guess if you have to remember, he led a Sokovian death squad.
No, it's true.
So
it's
true. He does have that not going for him, I guess.
No, yeah.
The
but
whole
what
crimes
leads
against
a guy,
humanity.
what leads a guy there, like that scene where he's talking about like his father, the body of his father holding the body of his
wife and son.
Or sorry, his wife and his son. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you sympathize with that. You do sympathize with that, for sure.
I mean, anybody, we don't know. We have no idea what that would do to our psyche. And all we can do as human beings is try to empathize. And they do a really good job of creating villains, except Batroc, who's the straight villain.
Yep.
Of being villains that you got to question. Like, because of a D&D guy and a Robotech role-playing kind of guy, I always look at characters in terms of their alignment.
Yep.
And Zemo is lawful evil.
I would agree with that.
He won't lie to you. He'll tell you the truth.
Yep.
I mean, he'll even lie to you and then tell you that, I'm sorry I lied to you.
Yeah, I lied to you because...
Right? And, I don't hold any grudges, Bucky. Again, James, I don't hold any grudges about what you thought you had to do to me.
Right, exactly.
He still doesn't even think he's wrong for creating a murderous, you know what I mean?
I've said it a couple of times, and talking about Captain America is a symbol of justice, not of patriotism.
They become symbols, icons.
If Zemo is not the opposite, he's a symbol of patriotism and not of justice.
Sure, what I mean? Like he's the.
How do you live with how do you live with the actions of knowing that you led a death squad? Well, you did it in the name of your country because your country told you to do it and you thought it was the right thing to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he still has ties to that. And that's what that going back to the thing is indicative of, standing there at the memorial. And then, funnily enough, actually, did he go to the Sokovia just to stand at the memorial and wait for Bucky?
Yeah, I asked myself the same question. Was he just gonna wait? He's just gonna wait there until he shows up, or this is just a big happy accident?
I also kind of like the way that they made him ostensibly the evil Batman of the MCU. He's got Alfred. He's got
I know,
Private Plane. He's got a crazy toys and
So
cars.
what?
And
You've been rich this whole time?
I'm a baron, son. My family was royalty until your friends destroyed my country.
It's fantastic. Well, I am a baron.
Yeah. It was good to get that element in there, though, because we, as the comic going audience, already know that Zemo has this
Baron Zemo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And now we have a baron and a contessa.
Yeah.
And so all we need is an archduke, and we're away to this. I don't think we're done with Hydra.
I don't think so either. I think Hydra is too big, too pervasive across the Marvel properties to
You know
not.
what just popped into my head?
No, go for it.
What if Sharon Carter's a Skrull?
Well, so that is a
Secret invasion is coming.
there was some talk about
It justifies all her actions suddenly, just instantly. It goes, well, that's actually not even Sharon Carter.
I've done so. Unlike WandaVision, I haven't been as sort of eager to jump online and look for all of the in between theoretical stuff. But that is one of the few that. Yeah, that is one of the few things that I heard theorized that she might in fact be a Skrull.
Oh, cool. Well, I like that.
Yeah.
Feels good to be on the same page as what other people are thinking. I did that on purpose this time, not go on Screen Crush or watch
anything,
reviews or anything. And I had this conversation with Lauren. I was like, I need to interpret this myself. My peers, my bubble is one thing, but I don't want people telling me what I think I feel about this.
I
know that I'm easily influenced. And after having watched it and sort of gone, this is how I feel, and then went and checked out a few things to see if I was tracking with Black community, if you will.
Yep.
And I was like, I did understand it. Good. I'm not viewing it as a,
no,
complete moron, right?
Well, throwing back to
good.
The line about have you visited the Sokovia Memorial?
Yeah.
With as much as it's touching on like actual real world issues.
Yeah.
Is that not another like an uncomfortable poke at the Avengers about accountability?
Yeah, for sure it is.
Like, you guys came in, you did your part, but have you gone back?
Well, they even show the clip from the other movie where he's like, then the Avengers just left.
They went home.
Which is that story that you get from all the people that are on the receiving end of a liberating force.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these people have come to help. They're bringing food. They're bringing water. They've gotten rid of our unstable leaders, and now they've gone.
We saw a little bit of that in going back to the WandaVision connection back in Civil War, the opening sequence in Civil War on Lagos, where she goes to contain the explosion when Bone Crusher. Rumlow. When Rumlow is about to explode, and then she tosses the body. She tosses him up into the air, and when it goes off, it levels an entire floor of a building, right?
Right.
The crossbones.
Crossbones, thank you. The collateral damage, right? And it's one of those things that's not really addressed, is the collateral damage when heroes go out and do the avenging.
Do you remember Damage Incorporated?
Damage Inc., yeah, I do. Yeah.
The comic that was the guys who cleaned up after the superhero fights?
There was talk that was going to get a series.
It would be great.
Yeah.
There's a Spider-Man comic from a couple of years ago where there's I think it's Jean DeWolf, the cop. She's chastising Spider-Man who just broke up a diamond robbery.
Right.
And she said, you just cost $4 million in damage, saving $150,000 in diamonds.
Yeah.
These are like, whoa.
These are questions that, you don't really think of, but the reality is there is, I don't want to say collateral damage, but there are other damages involved when these things happen.
Well, there was a meme that popped up yesterday, and it said Gotham City reels as Batman uses a tank to take on a clown.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like,
that's so true,
taking it to extremes, but...
Well, this is it.
Great example, just to segue for a second here. I don't know if you guys are watching Invincible on Amazon Prime.
So good, bro.
So if you watched the new episode yesterday, talk about collateral damage, as Mark is basically levels a portion of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, heroes and the civilian population, it's very much like, when there's a military operation, there's bound to be, you try to minimize it, but there's always going to be some level of damage.
Right.
Yeah. Whether it's loss of life or infrastructure or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Even Spider-Man Homecoming touched on that with Adrian Toomes and his crew.
His crew was the take on that.
They were cleaning up the damage left, from the New York invasion.
Yeah, they ostensibly were Damage Incorporated.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us down to the main crux of the show, and it's the Sam Wilson character and his journey towards becoming Captain America. And we've danced around it a little bit through the course of the conversation, but his transformation per se is really full circle, I guess, or fully embraced by episode, 5, when he, I don't know if the moment is when Bucky drops the briefcase there on the back of the truck.
I think the moment is when he opens it in this, and
he's
cut
staring
to black.
at it. Yeah.
It's like, you don't get to see it yet, but you know exactly what's in
it's
that
coming.
case.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah, really good story arc for a character. And, he's in comic book, in your mind, he's relegated to that. Like I personally, I don't think of the time Sam Wilson spent as Captain America in the comics. I always think of him as Cap's one-time sidekick. And especially the 70s runs of the Falcon, Captain America and the Falcon comics, where they were like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, where they were like an inseparable team.
Right.
And they did deal with heavy racial issues in that comic. And they took them from it made them street fighters rather than these global, we're going after Hitler. No, we're going to go after drug dealers in this episode, And so to see him actualize and resonate with me as Captain America, because I never did gravitate to that in the comics. It's super refreshing to have that take and to bring that home and go, I have no qualms about that's Captain America.
No, me neither.
They didn't even need to change the title at the end for me, because I was already
it's Captain America.
It's Captain America.
Yep.
Which is why I had no, when I was the Fandom and the Winter Soldier, does that not exclude Captain America? But it actually makes him everything. It's what he's about. And at the end of the day, you could paint anything you want on that shield.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's beautiful.
Can we just contrast this for a second here? I want to contrast Sam up against John Walker. And I'm going to start with Steve Rogers was engineered to be what he was. And then you have this, fast forward to John Walker, who says,
I'm just trying to be the best Captain America I can be.
There's a line where he says, I've put in the work. I've done the work.
Yeah.
Right? Sam never says that, but so has Sam. Sam has done the work.
Yes.
But like Steve, it wasn't about the work. It was about the core of the person.
Yeah, the core of the being.
Steve at his core is top level, trying to be the best human he can be.
It's one of those things. It's kind of similar to what I say to some of the kids that work for me. It's if you're putting in the work, you don't got to tell me that you're putting in the work.
You can see it.
I could see it.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't got to tell me you did a good job today. I tell you when you did a good job.
Yeah. Work speaks for itself. It's funny though too, because like you say, I look at them as being on some level as being two sides of the same coin. They've both, had these monumental journeys that are radically different, but yet similar on some levels. I mean, Sam was in the military, in the Air Force, and John was a, special forces operator guy. And so sure, they have some commonality there, but they're, again, that moral outlook is slightly different for both of them. And maybe would John Walker have been a different person had he been the sidekick to Steve Rogers? Probably.
Yeah, the influence would be heavy.
Yeah. Just like it was for Sam.
Yeah, certainly. There are parts of John's character that were broken when we were handed to him.
Yeah.
When he was handed to us. He's that, and you can relate to this. He's that soldier that came home from the war that, why are there any problems? Look at your 3 medals. Look at your beautiful family. Look at the accolades. Look, you're alive. You have all your limbs. Your friends are here with you. What could possibly be wrong, young man? And he's that abandoned child. And I didn't really realize that until I was yelling at the character to do the right thing. And when he did the right thing, I was like, there's
something left in him.
There's something left in him. And there, when I went back and I read some of the U.S. agent stuff, he killed for the first time after his parents were murdered. right? In
Yeah,
front of
yeah.
me.
That's something that's glaringly absent from this adaptation. So, I mean, his motivations aren't necessarily the same as that comic iteration.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to Uncle Ben him.
No.
You know, it's a little rote. Everybody's parents die and then they become a superhero. But I think by creating that, I honestly feel like he's even more of the opposite of Bucky.
You think so?
Well, in so much that Bucky is seeking some kind of cleansing to the things he's like, if he's got some form of PTSD that needs to be addressed,
Yeah.
he's working the problem.
Right.
And Sam says you got to do the work.
Yeah,
put the
you
work
do.
in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another reference to that line where John says, I put in the work, but he hasn't been putting in the work to exercise those demons, if you will.
Right.
And I feel strongly like that there's a very diametrically opposed arc to both those characters.
He talks about in that interview, I think it's the interview in episode 1 or episode 2, when he's on the football field and talking about, she asked him about his interaction, like, did he ever meet Captain America? And he's like, no, but I've studied him. So here's a guy who, he's doing the work. He's doing the work, just like in the Senate chamber. They made him. He's been doing the work that they've asked him to do, and he's done it well. He's
ostensibly, he didn't approach them and been like, hey, well, since there's no Captain America, can I do it?
No, he was picked.
Right?
He was picked. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. This is an immense amount of pressure on him to live up to the expectation of what Captain America is supposed to be.
And that's what he says to his wife. They have no idea what it takes to be Captain America.
No.
Because he has no idea what it takes to be Captain America.
No. He's totally struggling with that. And I mean, it's again, flip side of he and Sam are two sides of the same coin. They're both walking the same path, just with different experiences. Sam struggles.
Even Sam doesn't know what it takes to be Captain America till the very end.
No, you're right.
Right.
And
it's it's about wearing that mantle and realizing that it's not about the United States of America. It's about justice. It's about what's right and
what's
never
right.
ever faltering.
That's right. Yeah. Even Sharon in the funeral scene back in Civil War basically parrots Peggy's a line from Peggy about. And you can see Steve, and he's basically nodding with what she's saying when she says, Aunt Peggy would say about doing the right thing. And sometimes even when the right thing, when what you're doing, you're told is wrong, but it's the right thing. And sometimes you gotta dig in.
It is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say, no, you move.
And he's like, yeah. And that's the moment where he's like, I'm going it alone,
Yeah.
Same kind of, or similar kind of thing.
That's right. I'm just going to start calling her Skrull Carter now.
Yeah, really.
We'll see where we land.
Agent Skrull.
Yeah.
Well, guys, have we talked this out as long as it can go? Is there more that we're missing? We skipped over something.
There's a billion things we're missing in the nuance, but I kind of liked the format of this show because more than little things like Zemo's mask, more than not liking Agent Carter being the power broker, possibly, I got a feeling from this, and this show, it brought me to tears. It lifted my spirit. It gives me a sense of hope for the future, and I hope that people actually watch it and realize that that this isn't just about guys punching each other in the face.
No,
bad guys versus good guys.
There is way more going on.
This is actually one of the first times that they've tried to club racism over the head, and they did a really good job.
All of the stuff we've seen in the fan community over how reinvented or reimagined properties are coming out the gate as being overtly woke and socially conscious. This is one that does it so well that it doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't feel
it's
like for the sake of.
I call it pandering. And do I feel pandered to?
No,
and
not at all.
I have a few friends of color, and that's one of the questions I ask them about things.
Yeah.
Like my friend Ron from Brooklyn, I asked him, when you watch Luke Cage, do you feel pandered to? Like,
it's a good question.
You know what I mean? And these are the other things that is going to help racism go the F away, is that we need to sit down and have uncomfortable conversations with one another.
Yes.
And so when I said that to him, he was like, what do you mean, man? And I was like, like, did you feel like that was just because they needed to
for the sake of doing it? Yeah.
And he was like, that was the first thing I ever watched where I was like, I felt comfortable because that's what my neighborhood looked like.
Right. Yeah.
Like there was one white guy in my neighborhood when I grew up, and I was like, that's what I needed to know. That's perfect. Yeah. Right. Because the last thing I want is for women to feel like they're just being handed a female character for the sake of a female character.
Right.
And the last thing I want to feel like as a native person is that they're going to just pigeonhole, Johnny Depp into playing Tonto.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I don't want to feel pandered to. I want it to be genuine, and 100% this was genuine as hell.
I would agree with you on that. Andy, you were going to say that we missed something.
It's not so much we missed some, but two things. All the social, political issues and really important message aside, there's some fun stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like the Zemo cut.
Oh my God, the dance.
Release the Zemo cut, true. And they did it.
The dance. There's like, what is it, an hour-long
clip.
An hour-long video of him dancing in the club on a loop.
Really?
Yeah, there is.
I got to go check that
because
out,
there was a meme that popped out, and it's the Warner Brothers line, and it's like, reestablish the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
And DC says no.
Yeah.
Marvel community released the Zemo cut, and Marvel says, here you go.
Nicely done. I guess let's talk real quickly then about Madripoor.
Yeah, let's do it.
And the deeper
the
connection to the
the
X-Men,
meaning. Yeah.
What that has.
I thought Sharon Carter was a misstep there simply because of Madripoor.
Yeah.
Like there's another brilliant opportunity to bring in the whole X universe.
I saw
we could have had even an innocuous character from because there's I can't remember her name. It's not Yuriko, but there's an Asian connection that Wolverine has, a female Asian character from Madripoor, and that would have been the perfect person to have there. Although it wouldn't have resonated so closely to, because Sam and Bucky both know her, so that helps that. But
there,
also the fact that they call it the Patch Act, and that Patch is the name of Wolverine in Madripoor, and that Wolverine is actually a string puller in Madripoor. He's not Wolverine like he is back. Like he's like, remember when the Hulk became Mr. Fix-It in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
He's that guy in Madripoor.
Right.
So when they dropped Madripoor, I stood up. And then when they like announced the Patch Act, even just the name, I know it's probably not that, but even the name, and I was just like, this is the largest rod that they've thrown into the X-Men pool yet.
There was an interview between the head writer, can't think of his name, and Joshua Yale from IGN the other day, and he hit the question like right on the head. He's like, so was there any discussion around Madripoor and having Wolverine show up? Because he lives in Madripoor, has lived there at certain times. And the writer, he's like, listen, he's like, that there's certain things I just can't tell you. He's like, but I will tell you that there were all kinds of conversations around Madripoor and how they were going to use it. And he just kind of left it at like, I'm not going to say anymore. So I would take away from that there are plans from the higher ups at Marvel to revisit Madripoor.
I have watched the scenes in Madripoor at a low frame rate, but I've not been able to pick out a Wolverine.
Nothing.
Backgrounds yet.
So who knows who they've hidden there?
Yeah.
Or even on the spray paint. I was looking at some of the graffiti on the walls, looking for a Wolverine.
Always looking for those little Easter eggs.
Or a mutant or something.
Yeah. Was there any big Easter eggs that we haven't talked about?
Oh, I mean, there's so many scenes that were parallel to movie scenes that I lost count. There's so many legacy lines, if we want to use that, I lost count.
There was one I thought they were going to throw in, but I'm glad they didn't. And it was after Sam's speech.
Yep.
I was expecting Bucky to say, did you just think of that or did you write that down?
Nice. I was hoping that Sam would give Bucky on your left at some point.
I'm a big fan of that on your left thing. It was Sam when they're doing the run around the reflecting pool, and it's like, come on, right? And then we fast forward to Endgame, and it's like, hey Cap, on your left. And I thought,
when they wake up
when everybody came back, I thought that was so.
So
nice.
I was really kind of hoping for that because of the line in the first episode when they're going on the mission together. When he says, "You got a plan?" and he's like, "No, Buck, I don't." And he's like, "Don't call me that." Steve called you that. Yeah, but Steve had a plan.
Steve knew me longer, and he had a plan.
Right. And so I thought that maybe the On the Left thing would be a way of having them 100% connect that way.
Yeah.
It would have been fun. I would have accepted it.
Do we like the idea of them as a the buddy cop trope? Do we like that? Do we think that they're good?
When the writer described the tiers of action,
on the buddy cop meter
from Rush Hour,
right? And when he hit Lethal Weapon at the middle, and understanding that as a fan, you don't remember you're a fan of those films until someone says Lethal Weapon, and you're like, oh yeah, Lethal Weapon. Being the highest pinnacle of the buddy cop movie, in my opinion, and saying that's what they were shooting for, and then rewatching it in that context and going, oh my God, this is Lethal Weapon with superpowers.
I thought he
100%.
was, he on the one spectrum, on the one extreme, it was like 48 Hours as being like the ultra, like the highest, probably most revered buddy cop movie of all time, to like Ride Along on the other end being like the stupidest, right? And they wanted to be right down the middle, where they were this even mix of comedy to serious. And I think they largely pulled it off.
The scene where they interlock legs.
Yeah.
When they're having a standoff in the therapy session, but it's in a police interrogation room.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that close enough for you? That stuff reminded me of Riggs and Murtaugh.
Very much. Yeah.
Especially in light of them having extra, and that's what I say when I go, I'm heavily influenced by other people's opinions.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to have my own going in. But the second they said Lethal Weapon, I couldn't unsee it.
Of course.
Now, at any point during the series, did Bucky drop "I'm too old for this shit"?
Oh, no, that would have been great.
Wouldn't it have been?
He got the feeling that he was too old for this shit, though.
Yeah. Well, when he's having the discussion, the conversation in the bar with the waitress about how old are you, and he's like, I'm 90, whatever.
He tells the truth. It's great.
Yeah, like he just doesn't even doesn't bat an eye. I'm 96 or however old he says he is.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Interesting to see him skirt around romance or love interest, even though it never panned out. Be curious to see if he actually gets some kind of, will he find love down the road? Maybe it's just me as the romantic of the group, but I kind of hope that he gets,
I really like Sam's family. I really like that little scene
with his sister.
But don't flirt with my sister.
Don't flirt with my sister.
Yeah,
and more than that, Lauren loved that scene with his sister. So
as soon as she introduced herself as Sarah, and he's like, and you see him smile. Sarah.
He says it a second time.
Yeah.
If you've ever flirted with a woman, you repeat their name, and it's something else.
It is, yeah, because you want to remember that person. So that's really cool.
It's really cool, and the fact that he's like, I'll chop you up, and I'll have Buddy feed you to the fish if you hit my sister again.
Because if you do, I'll have Carlos cut you up and feed you to the fish.
It definitely tells me that if they're going to keep that character around, and I hope that they do. Because she was a fantastic moral compass for Sam, that we get to see her and Bucky have a little thing there.
For sure. I mean, everybody deserves happiness, so why not him, right?
And one of my favorite things I got to end on is that I have this. He's not really a friend. I've known him for a long time. He's an employee, and he's one of the worst human beings politically and socially that you could ever like. He's a Trump-loving, just Muslimophobe, homophobe, and then. To top it off, he's super intelligent, which makes him scary dangerous.
Oh, dangerous, yeah.
Because he can interpret the right-wing rhetoric and spit it back at you, and you've actually got to be on your feet to defend yourself and defend what's right. He refuses to watch the show because of the black agenda.
Oh, my God.
And that actually couldn't make me happier.
Yeah, stay away from my thing.
Stay
away from the thing I love.
And I don't want those kind of people spitting their vitriol into the ether
I do not
about it.
No, I
so
don't either.
Go watch whatever you want to watch about Hitler. I don't care.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah, and to actually, because I asked him, because he's a smart cat and he's a fan of superheroes and Star Wars and things. Although he's got that horrible toxic Finn thing going on.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Have you seen it yet?" And he's like, "I'm actually not going to watch it." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, he cited two reasons, and one of them is so ridiculous. He said he watched a clip of the date scene with Bucky.
Yep.
And I guess this is a right-wing interpretation or an incel, if you will, interpretation of this scene. But she says, "What do you think about dating?" And he's like, "Well, it's all tiger pictures."
Yeah.
And so tiger pictures, I guess, on Tinder are what gay men are posing with.
Oh.
And so I took that to mean, when it was explained to me, I took it to mean like he just didn't know how to navigate the website.
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah.
Right. But what these other people and this young man have interpreted this as
that Bucky's gay?
Character's bisexual or gay.
Okay.
And that they're like, oh, they're jamming this down our throat. And I'm like, man, you are like, if you want to read into something, read into Zemo's mask. Like, don't like stop harping on the utter surface of things and dive into something for once. Like, if you're going to be intelligent about something that matters.
And really, if that is what it is, who cares?
Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
Just wait until they introduce Wolverine's kid.
Oh my God.
Who cares?
All right, so the series just wrapped up last week. We've had assembled in that time, in that 1 week. Didn't take very long.
No.
We had the announcement for Captain America 4 with the writers from Falcon and the Winter Soldier attached.
There's even an interview out there with Anthony Mackie where he talks about it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Anything good?
It's kicking
from
around
that?
out there. Watch it. It's cool.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, there's no spoilery stuff. He's super excited to play the character full out for the first time, kind of action. Not have to evolve in the character, but to then be the character that is evolving. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Captain America was such a prolific figure within Phase 1 and Phase 2. All the phases, really.
Yeah, up to Phase
He's
3.
been prolific throughout the MCU up until now, and I'm curious to know if he will continue to have that same pervasiveness going forward, because all things are really pointing towards this multiverse concept, and I'm curious to know how this show, which really grounds itself in everything that came before it, how it's going to be able to move forward. If we're going to is it going to be back to television? Was there going to be
in media? Chris Evans has said he's done with the character.
I'm holding out that he's coming back for something.
Much like Robert Downey Jr. said he was done with the character before he had 3 more films.
Well, yeah.
But I don't know. I see Chris Evans on social media, video chatting little kids with cancer.
Yeah.
And doing happy birthday greetings to little girls who are big fans. And I see that guy acting like Captain America in the real world a lot.
He's had that reputation for a while now, yeah.
And I just Steve Rogers isn't dead in the comics.
I think he and The Rock are going to make good running mates for the presidential race.
So if we go back into the end of Endgame a little bit.
Sure.
Just real quick.
Yep.
Steve Rogers as a 70-year-old or 80-year-old man is sitting on a bench there with the shield.
Yeah.
He went back in time, ostensibly created another timeline where he acquired the shield. So did he acquire the shield before that Steve Rogers went into the ice?
I know.
And is there still a Steve Rogers stuck in the ice?
Well, that's just it, right?
In the timeline of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a timeline like where we had Captain America, where he died saving the universe, and where there's a new Captain America. But are there not still 2 Steve Rogers? Because while Bucky says he's gone, they never say he's dead.
And that could be something they touch on at the beginning of the film, right? Like a proper
Is there
funeral.
either not still a Steve Rogers in his 30s with a shield frozen in ice?
Or is there a Steve
or
Rogers
is
on the
there
moon?
a Steve Rogers walking around
on the moon?
Right?
Moon stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Is the joke not a joke?
And I have and especially it's a joke when I was like, I heard Captain America was on the moon, and another guy at the end of the show references
I thought he was
Captain
on the moon.
America. But the telling part is, I gotta go do moon stuff.
Yeah, the joke, moon stuff.
The joke, like moon stuff. I'm gonna do moon stuff. Like,
and we've already seen, and it's not 100% on the nose where exactly they are, but when we see Nick Fury at the end of, is it Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's in space. Is he on the moon?
No, it's at the end of Spider-Man.
Yeah, so
Far
you're
From
right.
Home.
Yeah.
Right.
Is he on the moon?
Or is he at the Sword space station?
Well, this is what I mean. Like,
seeing as they twisted up Sword for WandaVision.
Right. So in the way that they reimagined a lot of the stuff, is Sword going to be reimagined as a moon base instead of a satellite?
Could be.
Space station? Who knows?
I never watched any of the Eternals, or not the Eternals, but the Inhumans show.
I just went and watched the one season, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and are they moon based?
They are. They are. Yeah, yeah.
And then so that's got to play into. I mean, you can't have a forest full of Ewoks and never encounter them if you're on Endor.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. So who knows? Who knows?
I don't know, but I am definitely looking forward to what the future holds for the MCU. It's as big a powerhouse as it's always been, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Nope.
Disney Plus shows revolving properties from my childhood.
Yeah.
3 for 3. 3 for 3.
Yep, me too.
I can't wait for Tuesday, boys.
What's this Tuesday?
May the 4th
May
be
the
with
4th.
you.
Oh, okay.
Bad
Yes, I
Batch.
forgot all about that. That's true.
I can't wait.
Which means a return to our regular song stylings of our beat by beat episodic review series as we dive into the Bad Batch as we promised we would. So that's going to be fun. Lots of other things coming up here on the show. We got our first big collaboration coming up here soon.
Super excited.
We're going to be joining the guys from the Reflex Point podcast, the Robotech podcast, where we are going to have our next round of fantasy casting call, where we are going to try and cast the live action Robotech movie. So join us for that, as well as everything else that is in the pipe. Anyway, guys, I think we had a really good conversation about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was a fantastic show. I expect I will go back and rewatch it again because I liked it that much.
I got 4 days till the Bad Batch. I'm not doing nothing.
Exactly.
Well, I could always continue talking forever on the physics of time travel.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Really hash out where Steve Rogers actually sitting.
Yeah, really.
There's an official explanation just before we wrap. There's an official explanation from Marvel about that twists my brain up, because I think they create a closed loop and the writers say no, but I think they cause a huge conundrum there for me. Yeah, we could argue the physics of time travel and multi-dimensional things all day there, but
they're going to hash it out on Loki.
They'd have to.
Yeah,
because there's time cops apparently in that.
Yeah, and it's Owen Wilson. That's going to be interesting.
Wow, that's pretty great.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps another episode of Fandom Power. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and lots more to come in the future. So for the show, I'm Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.
The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
Have you ever wanted to start a podcast, but you didn't know where to begin? Maybe you'd like to try podcasting without having to invest in any recording equipment. Do you have an idea for a show, but you're not sure how to develop it? Let Sawcast Productions take care of all of that, so you can focus on what it is you want to say. Sawcast Productions offers podcasting solutions ranging from recording and basic editing to fully produced episodes complete with all the audio embellishments of a broadcast quality show. And when your show is ready, Sawcast Productions can distribute it too. Contact us online today. So, what do you want to say?